Hey folks, it's Jamie Lundell here. I'm just going to go over how to fit up a tapered guard. So basically one thing that I do a lot of are seaxes, and you can see there's no ricasso here. This is all just one taper. The blade kind of comes down and goes directly into the guard or bolster. So we're just going to kind of go over how to fit up that triangular shape and how to create that. So I have a piece of bronze here, and one thing that I like doing is doing most of this fitting up while you have a larger piece. That way you can, you're not working with really tight margins. You give yourself a little extra space. You know, I could have gone through and cut out a chunk, and that would have been fine. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to kind of lay this guy down here and make sure that I have plenty of room towards the back and on either side, and that way as I go through I don't have any issues of all of a sudden having a bolster that is too big, or I'm sorry, not too big, but a bolster that is too small. So I'm going to lay this up here. The next thing I'm going to need is a scribe, and I'm just going to follow my line of my tang and the transition out to the blade. Alright, so now all of that is marked up. I sprayed some dye chem on here, so that way I have nice bold lines. It makes things very easy to see and easy to reference. So now I know where the transition is. I know how large my tang is. The next thing I'm going to do is I got some calipers here, and I'm going to take a measurement at the back of the tang, just the very, very back of the tang. So I'm at 1.6 approximately. So now I have that measurement of 1.6. I have a drill index. I'm going to find something that is smaller than 1.6, so something around the neighborhood of, let's see, 1.49 looks about right. And what I'm going to do with that is go ahead and use that to, well actually first what I need to do is I need to strike a line to go, that's going to show the transition between tang and blade. So I'm just going to lay that out, play connect the dots. So I have a straight line that I'm referencing from that I'll be able to then put my center punch marks on. So now I have my drill. I'm going to lay this up to what is the back of the transition, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. Alright, so now we have our line that's struck here. We have our larger drill bit, and what we're going to do is lay that up to where the back of that transition is. So this is the back of the tang. That's where I have my wide measurement. I'm going to mark here. That's going to show me my edge. I'm also going to put a little mark right there. And at that center mark, I'm going to drop a center punch. Alright. And so what I've done is I've also then taken measurements of this smaller, the thinner part of my tang, and I've put together an array of drill bits that are in descending order. So now I know that this is my edge of this guy. I'm going to put another mark right here, and looking right there, and I'm just going to continue this, staying on this line, making sure I'm trying to keep everything nice and straight, and going from the thickest to the thinnest. I'm making a descending order of drills, making sure that I keep them in order as well as I go. So this way, when I go ahead and get them drilled, they're all in order, and we have a wedge that we end up cutting with drill bits. So we're just going to continue that going all the way down the line and then go ahead and drill them. So now at this point we're all set up at the drill. The important thing is to make sure that you have the right drill bit that's going to be going to the right center punched hole. And since we have the descending order between each of the holes that get drilled, you need to swap out. And if at some point during this you had to do two of the same size in a row, because you are basically cutting all of these undersized, so having two of the same size drill bits might be a thing that happened in two of your holes. That you just remember the order in which you did these, and hopefully as you cut these, because of the way that it was laid out, you end up with very small or hopefully no web in between. So I'm going to go ahead and get these cut, and then we'll take a look at how I did. Alright, so you can see that my slots have been cut, or my holes have been drilled. I have a couple that have broached themselves, but mostly I just have like a little bit of webbing in between. And so what I'm going to use now is I have these diamond files that I've gotten from Harbor Freight. It's pretty inexpensive for a pack of them. You know, this guy's tapered on one side and flat on the other. It's a variety of different shaped files, but they're all very thin and perfect for this kind of work. So what I'm going to do now is just use the files to broach the holes that have not yet been broached and turn this into a tapered slot. Alright, so you can see that I've now got everything filed. I squared up this top, so when I go to get the knife tang in there, let me just adjust this. There we go. We are snug. Yeah, it looks like close to an inch in. So at this point, since everything is, I've extended my slot down to the bottom line and up to the top line, and I can get on here a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this guy free, and then from there clean it up. A little bit of acetone will take off the die chem, and heat this up, and then drive it down onto the tang, and that'll get me a nice tight fit. Currently I have the seax blade in vise with a leather gasket around it, so that way I'm not going to mess up the blade. And I have a piece of pipe that I've forged down into a taper, which will fit over here, and crests either end, so that way when I forge this, when I put the bronze on and use this to snug it up, I'm getting pressure on either end, and it should end up being a pretty nice fit, because right here it's fairly tight on there. And so now I'm just going to heat up the bronze with a oxypropane torch and then put it on here. It snugs up, and then just using this guy, making sure it's in the right direction. Tap this down. There it is. And that gives you a nice tight fit up. There could be maybe a little bit more adjusting to go, but that is the basics on how that's done. And so now whenever this gets slotted on here, you can see the very tight fit up. And if I ended up with some gaps, what I could do is texture the face of this with a ball peen that would expand out the surface, and then basically go through this process one more time just to make sure that everything is nice and snug. So that is the basic overview on how I do my tapered fit-ups. If there's any questions that you have, you know, leave them in the comments and I will get back to you. And I hope that helps.